Hi! Hey, welcome. Today we're going to explore my top 5 composition techniques that will make a huge difference in your collage art. As a graphic designer and collage artist, I have spent my entire career learning to use these concepts. And today I'm going to share them with you. I'd be willing to bet that the art that you like most uses one or more of these composition techniques. And if you want to make better art, then we should talk about them. If we haven't met before, I'm Jess, I'm a collage artist, and I'm so glad that you're here. Pull up a chair, take a load off, and welcome. Even if you've heard of all these techniques, stick around till the end because I'm going to reveal how I use all of them in one massive collage. And I don't know if it's going to be good, but it will be something. Let's start with the easiest technique, the rule of thirds. Chances are good you might already be using this technique in your own practice. Of all the techniques, I think this one is the most intuitive. In your mind or on a sheet of paper, draw out a 3x3 grid. Now place key subjects on these line intersections for a more dynamic composition. But here's my burning question. Why is the rule of thirds so appealing to the eye? Honestly, I couldn't find much in my research to explain why this is such a powerful composition tool. The best, most definitive statement I could find about the subject was from Wikipedia. It said, quote, "Aligning a subject with these points creates more tension, energy, and interest in the composition than simply centering the subject," end quote. I guess what I'm saying is I don't know what the scientific reasoning is here, but for whatever reason, it seems to work. The rule is helpful in so much as it creates a starting point. It gives you a rough roadmap to begin thinking about where you want to place your hero pieces. But I do want to say that calling this a rule is a bit of a misnomer. The rule of thirds is more of a suggestion of thirds. Easy concept, you don't got to do it. But it is helpful when you're starting out. Just a little harder, let's move on to leading lines. These can be natural or artificial elements that guide the viewer's eyes to the main subject. It's great if you have a piece that works like this. But if you don't have something like that, you could make your own leading lines using scraps. Leading lines draw the eye toward a central subject or point and can help you define meaning or just, draw attention to a specific point. A leading line doesn't have to be a literal line either, though I think that's the easiest way to think of them. That being said, once you have the hang of this idea, you can create leading lines in your work using other types of elements too. For instance, a leading line could be a collection of objects all organized in a way to move the focus toward one central point. Okay, so similar to leading lines, let's talk about framing next. Oh great, I can help with that. No, not that kind of framing. I'm talking about using your pieces to create frames in your work to draw the viewer's attention to one area. It's very similar to leading lines in that it's trying to point the viewer into the spot that you want them to look. You can use elements like images of doorways, for example, to create a frame within the composition, which will highlight for the viewer what you want them to look at. So I'm sitting in my studio looking through my books for any example of pictures of windows or doors, and I can't find any. I know that they exist, but for whatever reason in my materials, I don't know, I just can't find any right now, but they exist, and it doesn't have to be those two things. I just thought maybe I would be able to find an example and show you, but I guess not. Oh, okay. Something I think might be interesting would be to play with this concept of frame and elevated importance. What would happen if you put something important outside the frame and something unimportant inside it? Like a magician, can we direct the attention of the audience while creating meaning elsewhere? And what does that mean for the entire piece? I didn't do that here, but I do think that's something that might be kind of interesting later to explore. Now let's talk about balance. This is tougher territory, because in a collage, balance means distributing the visual weight. The tricky thing about this concept is that you don't have to go for symmetry, although that's a very natural way to want to try to create balance. But the thing is, an asymmetrical collage can be just as balanced. Balancing simply means that the positive and negative space are equal to one another. And this is a tougher concept because, in my opinion at least, it's a lot more vibes-based. What's balanced to me may not be entirely balanced to someone else. You'd think it would just be cut and dry, but I think taste kind of comes into this a bit more than other things. When I'm not sure if my collage is balanced, what I try to do is take a step back and look at it from afar. If I step back and I feel the piece is heavier on one side, I might add something or remove something. With collage, removal might seem like a problem if you've already started gluing, and that's why a lot of collage artists will compose and wait until the end to paste things down. But if you're anything like me and sometimes paste pieces in the wrong spot even after initially composing carefully, creating balance may mean having the courage to cover over a piece. That can be hard to do if it was a piece you really liked or wanted to keep, but once things are stuck down, the options are pretty limited. For balance on this collage, I took a step back and I noticed that in this bottom right corner, it looked really empty. And I think that if it didn't have the National Geographic frame, that would be fine. But because things are looking so heavy on the left side and there's only a little bit going on in the upper right side, we kind of need something in this bottom right corner to just even the visual space out. I ended up landing on these words. I think they work okay to help draw the eye and create that little bit of balance. If I were to continue working on this collage, this is an area that I might continue to try to refine. I think that this could be pushed a little further to create better balance. There's just certain things that I think I would give up in terms of composition in order to give collages more meaning, make them more interesting to me. Finally, let's talk about the hardest composition technique in collage of all: depth. Depth gives you a sense of 3D space with the foreground, middle ground, and background. And why do I think this is so hard in collage? Well, let's consider our materials. Typically, we're working with professional photography and cutting the in-focus subject out. And even if you try to cut out something from a magazine or book that is out of focus, the act of cutting creates this hard edge. The result, in my opinion, is that everything ends up looking in focus. So you can't count on fuzzy edges to convey a sense of depth or closeness to the camera. So what can you do? A person close to the bottom of the page will look closer to the viewer than if they were placed farther up. Though the farther back they go, the bigger in scale they'll seem in comparison to the background. The option that I like the most and am most familiar with is cutting around an object in the foreground and shoving your piece a little bit behind it. So for instance, in this collage, I have created depth by putting my character in the middle ground, and I cut around the person's body and then put the shoes slightly behind it. And in that way, I'm forcing the perspective that this character is farther back than the person that they are behind, if that makes sense. And here is my final massive collage I created using all of these techniques at once. And I think that what this particular collage goes to show is that there can be a little too much of a good thing. But I think that by picking one or two of these composition techniques and pushing it a little farther forward, it would help make the collage feel a little more cohesive, a little less kitchen sink. The best thing about learning these composition techniques is that eventually you get a sense for when you can break those rules of composition to create meaning or new ideas in your collage art. Hey, if you like this video or you found it helpful, I hope you'll consider subscribing. I post videos here on YouTube every other week, and I would love to see you here again. Okay, I think that's it. Bye. See ya. Bye.